Despite Arsenal beating Wolves comfortably, there was definitely different tactics on show for Arteta's men. And with the rumours that Mikel Merino will be signed as an Arsenal player next week, I think it shows exactly why Mikel Arteta wants him within the team for a specific way that may not be considered before. In this video, we're going to go through why Mikel Merino suits the current Arsenal tactics and how the Wolves game proves that Arteta's system is correct. So let's get into it. Now, I have gone through Mikel Merino potentially signing for Arsenal a few times now, and I wasn't really going to make any more videos until it was confirmed or I necessarily had anything more to say. But watching the Wolves and Arsenal game, I think there's a few tactical things that I haven't mentioned before which actually makes sense why Merino is signing that are different to what you may think with a signing like this happening. Now, of course, the signings of Merino and Calafiori have definitely been made to improve Arsenal's left side of the pitch when things aren't necessarily going as well as they should. We've gone on about it, but obviously Arsenal are heavy reliant on their right side last season, with Odegaard and Saka being not only the main providers but also the main goal scorers, and pretty much everything Arsenal did went through that side. I think it was over 45%, which made us quite predictable when attacking because teams would just block Saka and kind of leave Martinelli to his own accord because he was never going to get the ball. Now, against Wolves, I don't think Martinelli had the best game in the world. I still think there's some issues with him going forward, but he actually got the ball a considerable amount more in good areas such as in the box than he did last season. This overall did benefit Arsenal, even if Martinelli didn't exactly benefit from it individually because he didn't play that well, because it gave Saka considerable space out wide where he was able to cross or get into the box and do really good efforts, which obviously he scored from as well. Now, I think with Havertz, the tactics have changed quite a lot. Havertz is obviously 6'4", he's very tall, and obviously with his brilliant movement, he is tasked with moving in late into the box and kind of being the main man you look for crosses. The first goal that we scored of the Premier League season is him running deep late, and obviously you have other players in there such as Partey and Gabriel that were left up from the set piece that we had before, but he is the one that we're really looking for, maybe Gabriel as well because he's a brilliant headerer, and he gets in there brilliantly using Partey as a dummy to get the header in front of the goalkeeper, timeless run to perfection. Now, although there's always been the blueprint of Saka cutting in and crossing to the back post, which we have seen, last season was the first time it was really used to effect. We even have people like Trossard peel off the defender and try and get that shot away, which we saw in games like against Chelsea. Or we had Havertz move in from midfield, which was actually used at the start as a box crusher, and this was basically to evade pressure set by Jesus or whoever was up front in order to get the header back post and score, which obviously worked a few times. We saw it against Brentford to score the last minute winner, and then as the season moved on, Havertz was moved up front and he became the main target anyway, even though there was also times that he did use a dummy front post, such as against Luton where Jesus got a tap in behind it. Now, at the time, these tactics did get a little bit of criticism, especially Havertz in midfield, because while that is a fine thing being at the back post and header in it like he can do, we weren't really getting the significant pressure over there, and Saka wasn't able to do these consistent crosses because he was getting 2v1'd on and 3v1'd on, and Havertz just wasn't doing enough in midfield. He wasn't helping progression, and half of the time he would just leave the play and wait for the chances in the box, which Arsenal did not need because it put too much pressure on Rice and Odegaard, although they are brilliant and that did help us a lot at the start. Now, I think Merino coming in for Arsenal kind of adds a little bit of everything, and this is something that Arteta has done with a few signings now, where he's got someone that can do a couple of roles that he has had one player do before, and that is how he's adapted to do different things. A great example of Arteta doing this is Calafiori. Calafiori does exactly what Timber does in that left side of the pitch, other than the fact he is a more carry heavy person than necessarily a pass heavy. Now, Timber can still carry the ball very well, maybe not with incredible speed like Calafiori, but Timber is also right footed, and I think Arteta would prefer him to play on the right side than the left side, even though he obviously did come on in the left side in this game. These little things is something that Arteta does look for just to make his team flow a lot better, and in this game we had that flow with the left hand side a little bit. I think Zinchenko did struggle, but there was many times, I think especially in the second half, where Rice drew up the ball and pushed himself forward, and Martinelli could be on the overlap and even Zinchenko could be on the underlap or overlap for him. They kept giving Arsenal options for the pullback, which we looked for a few times and it didn't come off because Partey usually messed it up. Now, I think Rice in that Partey role makes a lot more sense. I know Rice is good at that driving forward, but Merino would obviously replace Rice in this team, and now when Rice made them progressive forward runs and passed it off, he still looks a bit clunky on the ball sometimes. because he's not necessarily a natural player in that role compared to Merino, who obviously has got really good interplay and is really good in them tight areas. Like with players like Martinelli, I could see really working. Now, these are all things that we knew that he could do, and I think you can see that will happen into games. I think Partey will be dropped in the future when Merino signs, and I think Rice will probably move back into that 6. But something I didn't really consider with Merino was his aerial prowess. Now, obviously he's 6'2". We're going to go for physical players. It is part of the system now. We go for tall, big players. But he did win the most aerial duels in La Liga last season, being very good in the air. And we've gone on about it. He gets in a lot of aerial duels per game, top 1% in just getting in them, and he wins the top 1% as well. So he's very dominant. Now, something that we keep doing is doing these crosses from out to in from our wingers, Saka and Martinelli. We saw more from Saka in this game, and Martinelli has done it in pre-season, and everyone is planned to get into the box. Now, we have seen also Zinchenko do this on the other side, where he comes and helps Martinelli because he isn't really going to get into the box. When him or Ben White does it on the right side or left side, it is the task of the striker, Havertz usually. If it's Jesus, it'll be Jesus, and that sided midfielder and that sided winger to get into the box. This has been the adaptation that we've also seen Saka get into the box a lot more, waiting for them crosses, but also Odegaard is also getting in there, which I wouldn't say he did. He usually worked outside the box before this season. But when Saka is doing it and he crosses it in, which obviously I'd say is probably our main go-to because Saka is the best person at crossing the ball in on this team, not only do you have Havertz running inside, you have Martinelli running on the back post, just in case I think if people miss it, he's not necessarily going to be very good in the air. But in this game, we also had Declan Rice running from deep as well. There's a few times this happened. Even with the goal, you can argue that Gabriel, who stays up from the corner, kind of operates that role from Declan Rice, and Partey acts as a dummy in front, but he does just miss the ball. Merino is incredible in the air, and if he's in that left centre mid spot that Rice is currently in, he can do them runs with Havertz to get into the box. And if you can create space between you and the defender, which I'm sure he'd be able to because he's running in late, which is something Arsenal also like doing, he can get on the same page as Havertz and Saka to get into the box and head the ball as well. This could be in case Havertz doesn't get the ball, but also having two physical, really good players in the air in the box at all given times will be such an asset for Arsenal going forward, and I actually think you could see Merino pop up in the box a lot more. Now, having more players in the box as well creates things like ball will just drop down for someone in there, and it will create space from players out just outside the box, where I prefer Rice over Partey, at least right now. I know Partey's had a record of scoring really good screamers, but I haven't seen it in enough long time. Now, I can understand these little things being not necessarily seen important, but obviously everything in football is so important at the highest level, and Arteta definitely thinks this is going to be a big option for Arsenal to get better if they sign Merino. And honestly, I can see people's arguments about him not necessarily moving the needle, but I think tactically when you look at Partey right now, I'm not sure he's really doing it for us, so I can understand him coming in as a little bit of a stopgap option until the market necessarily opens up in midfield, because there's already been a lot of deals which I would say were a bit overpriced, and I don't think Arsenal are willing to do that this summer as much as others. Now, that is just my opinion, however, and obviously things could change, but let me know what you guys think about the Merino signing and this Wolves game. Was there anything tactically that interested you, or any players as well? And if you like this video, please go and watch my video earlier where I talked about Bukayo Saka's performance in more detail. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.